when we hire, right, we're looking for behaviors and we're looking for attitudes and passion and all these great things, and now we're looking also having to navigate this MarTech stack, which is over 5,000 or whatever vendors at this point in time. And in how, as you're looking and building your marketing organizations, how do you balance everything that you just described about growing people with this issue around data and this issue around visibility, which is tied to data, which is tied to the fact that the MarTech stack is just so overwhelmingly complex. I mean, so how does that technology fit into this whole equation?
I think that there's an old, I think it's Mark Twain, lies, damn lies, and statistics, and you could certainly apply that to marketing today. It's lies, damn lies, and data. None of us have a problem with data quantity. We have data coming out of every application, out of every database, out of every system that we have. It's really, what's the quality of that data? How current is that data? How clean is it? How accurate is it? You have to have a data hygiene protocol in place and a real belief that it is important. So no matter what size company you have to have some notion of data governance and a model for data governance and process. So I like to institute that, and I have the advantage of having started my career at Oracle and then also worked for Salesforce.com of having a pretty good and pretty deep background in understanding how fundamental data is to the business and how easy it is to get it wrong. So again, we don't have a data quantity issue, we have a quality issue. If you're looking into your CRM system and analyzing and reporting and making decisions that drive changes in how you go to market, and your data is wrong, you have a huge problem. And frankly, at the companies that I've worked for since leaving Oracle and Salesforce, where I'm working in those tools and those systems a lot because they're so widely deployed, one of the first things I do is really look at what's in there, dive in, and figure out the quality of the data. Because if you can't do that, and you can't evaluate and understand the quality and the hygiene and currency of your data, then everything else just doesn't matter. And a lot of times you have to go through a data cleanup, and sales is usually very happy to have marketing as a partner there. They know they're not getting everything right. They don't trust the data entirely, and you have to have some discipline around that. The second thing is that you talked about the proliferation of tools. The marketing technology stack has gotten enormously complicated. And you go into a lot of companies today, and they have their CRM system, and they don't fully understand what the capabilities of that system are. So each marketing person you hire has their bias towards tools that they've used and been successful with, and so they slap on this tool for email marketing and that tool for campaign management and this analytics and this presentation layer, and pretty soon you have kind of a Rube Goldberg-esque stack of things that can present your data in ways that are different. If you can report on your data differently from one tool than another and get different answers, then you've got a problem. I believe in KISS, keep it simple, stupid. Figure out what the capabilities are of your core CRM system and what the reporting and metrics are that you need. How much of that can I do with the systems that I already have? And what other tools can I get rid of that I'm paying money for? Because no offense to all of the wonderful, and a lot of them are amazing, there are wonderful marketing automation tools out there, but you really have to be disciplined about what you need to operate your business and get the data right for your business. I'm a big fan of keeping it simple and applying those add-on tools when you need it. It's really good. You've got to have some sort of a marketing automation and email marketing tool in place because the core capabilities of a CRM system usually aren't expert at that. However, if you're working with a vendor that you like and they have a component that has those capabilities, you usually want to look at that vendor first because you can usually get a quicker time to value and, frankly, get an add-on and you have more power as an existing customer. So that's the way I look at it, is have as many tools as you need and as few as you can possibly get by with.
Julie, I think you absolutely laid out that perspective very well for those on the call to understand how you go through that process. If I were to break it down just a little further on 4 key things to keep in mind that I always try to do, which is in taking the mindset you just shared, is I like to go through a test and trial. Everything is test and trial on all the MarTech stack elements that we have. So test and trial first and foremost. From there, I make it very clear I want short-term contracts and I want annual reviews. I absolutely leverage the talent, the insight, and the perspectives that these MarTech vendors have that know these technologies so well, and I ask them to come in and give us a review. How effectively are we leveraging their technology or not? How are others leveraging it more effectively than we are? And then we can make a decision, do we want to continue down this path or not? With that, it's also about benchmarking and baselines. So if we go through the tests and trials, we do the annual metrics and then kind of the business reviews, we have short-term contracts in place, we set those baselines and those benchmarks, then we're absolutely able to constantly look at, is this serving our needs today for where the business is? Do we need to look at bringing in new technology? And how do we reduce our overall MarTech spend so we have the dollars and resources available to take advantage of new technologies that are coming out every single day?
That you're spot on, Amy. That's so true. The one area where, because I've worked for some of those companies, I want that relationship with my vendors. And if it's a vendor that I know and trust, I will absolutely sign a longer contract. I think that's something that when you're starting with a new vendor, I 100% agree. Shorter term, quick win is better. But once you've got that trust and belief and you know they're not a fly-by-night vendor, I do think you can get some much better pricing by going into a longer term contract in those cases. But that's the core of your stack, not a lot of the add-on tools. And then the other thing you have to be mindful of is some of these smaller apps and tools from small companies that you might meet at a big marketing conference like Dreamforce or something like that in the space. They're really good at doing things that might be really important to your business. So don't hesitate to experiment and work with some of these smaller players and try that out, but use what Christine talked about. Do that A/B testing, have a bake-off, and really benchmark and establish what the criteria are by which you're going to determine whether you continue to work with these tools. The other thing you have to be ready for, a lot of consolidation, a lot of acquisition, a lot of changes. So that's where being mindful and being aware of what's going on in the marketing technology space is really important. Who's coming up, who's going down, and it's challenging. You have to manage it all of the time.
So we've been talking about accountability of vendors, right, in which is really key. But when we go back, let's shift back and look at accountability of team members. And what I want to kind of zero in on is the differences, I should say, generationally. There's this trend out that says, annual performance reviews, which we've all been through and everyone dreads to no end, are really passé. They don't work. Millennials and Gen Zs really like continuous feedback. Other generations like it in a bit of different forms. But yet, feedback and accountability aren't the same things. So I kind of want to probe on how you've actually held your teams accountable let me rephrase that. Held the teams accountable, an individual accountable, and having them hold each other and themselves accountable on hard numbers and on hard metrics, not on the soft stuff. We spend a lot of time on the soft stuff, but on the hard stuff. So how do you do that?
I'll start with that. Yeah. For example, in my current role, marketing has a responsibility to deliver between 20 and 25% of the net new business to the company. That's a macro number that everyone within marketing has a responsibility to help deliver against. So that's one that can be set as an annual goal. But the reality is, in today's world, at the fast-paced way in which business is done, with the tools that we have available to us, our ability to do tests and trials, to shift direction rather quickly, whether it be through a market opportunity, a competitive play, or insights that we gain, it is very difficult to set annual goals and objectives for campaigns and programs that once in the past you would have run for an entire year. Today you no longer would, because then you're not taking advantage of the insights that you're gaining and twisting and turning those dials to improve overall performance. The way I like to look at it is I like to very much focus on kind of the umbrella goals and objectives, 20-25% net new business we're going to contribute. Then within each of the areas, I like to look at it from the standpoint of a quarterly basis. And everything we do within my teams, we start everything off first and foremost with a purpose and a strategy. Purpose is why are we doing it? Strategy is how we're going to do it. Within that, you're able to define what are the objectives and what are the key results. And you do a debrief all the way through that process. You launch a new campaign, you look at it almost in a sports analogy. Let's look at it at halftime. Let's see what adjustments we want to make. Then let's look at it at the 2-minute play. when it's coming to the end, but there's an opportunity to run a couple really unique plays that could really pump up the outcome and the impact that we can have in the marketplace, and you fine-tune that. So the organization itself is living and breathing that all of these goals all serve in the purpose of the higher order net new business. The ways in which we do it, we must be agile. We must, in fact, adjust. And that is how I manage the team, based upon those objectives and key results with the purpose and strategies defined for everything we do up front. And that becomes the way in which we view and judge our performance.
Wow. All right. Julie.
I think that's great. I think that's exactly how you should be running an organization as a team, because people want to know how are they doing, what are the larger goals. I think that it's also super challenging in some functions in marketing, because marketing is such a broad set of functions these days. We've talked about how much it's changed. It's really hard in some cases if you are responsible for, let's say, public relations or analyst relations, so more in the media and influencer space. Understanding how you contribute to that 25% net new might be challenging. It's still important to have those high-level metrics shared across the entire organization, and then figure out what are the proxies in PR and analyst relations that best could support that. Is it the number of media hits you get in terms of press coverage? Is it who might cover you? Is it an analyst engagement? Did you talk to the right analyst, and are they speaking to the market? So you have some of those tactical things, and those are not hard ties to that 25% contribution to the revenue metric, but they are definitely players there. Amy talked earlier about the importance of brand. That is how you build your brand. Your brand isn't what you think of your company and how you present yourself. Your brand is the perception that exists about your company in the marketplace. So building that perception in a positive, high-impact way is how you build and grow your brand, and you do that by influencing the market and the customers. And I think every person in your organization needs to have their specific role tied to those higher metrics and understand the path from that revenue contribution down to what their functional organization does, down to what they individually do, so that they can focus their efforts and feel some meaning in the things they do day to day. Christine, you also mentioned something about the younger generation and millennials. I believe millennials get a bad rap. I don't think any whole generation is better or worse than the generation before or after it. I'm also the parent to a couple of millennials, and I think they're doing just fine. I think they do have some differences, and I do think that when you're young, you're still closer to having been in the nest of home, where you get lots of positive reinforcement on a regular basis from mom and dad. Team sports changed, and everybody got a medal and a trophy for participating. So yeah, there's that. That doesn't make them bad employees. I find that younger people bring an energy, an enthusiasm, an interest, and a freshness to the workplace that's really vital and really important. And it's our job as leaders and managers to help make space for them and figure out how to make them the next great generation, because they're going to be running things 10, 20 years from now. So they need to be brought into the fold and be part of it. I think they're innovative. I also think that they have been raised. There is a generational difference where they're looking for more balance in their lives. They don't believe they're going to be better off than their parents. And that's something that's probably pretty pragmatic. So let's take advantage of the pragmatic part of what we perceive as a negative in millennial employees and really look at it and try and understand where it comes from and how we can maximize the impact and contribution that they feel. You can't make a sweeping generalization about a whole generation.
Sorry. All right. Well, we're almost out of time. In fact, we are out of time. I think we could have gone on for definitely a whole lot longer. There's been so much advice packed into this webinar, from everything from be very clear in terms of what your strategy is and how to grow your marketing organization by focusing on also the tactical and the strategic at the same time. Be clear on the roles that you need and looking at people and bring into your organization that fit the culture, that have a passion, that have a curiosity, that want to be invested in, that want to learn, that want to train, and that want to move the needle. But at the same time, making sure that we align with sales, we understand sales, and that likewise that they understand marketing, and that also extends to the executives, that we have to constantly educate the marketing the executives about marketing, I should say, and being clear that we understand what drives the customer, what drives loyalty, what drives churn, what drives the happy factor, what drives the not so happy factors, and bringing that into the organization for everyone else. And we talked about accountability, that marketing, and I love this from Amy, that, marketing owns the number. That's been my belief when I was a CMO and a head of marketing, is that we own a number. We might not carry a bag, but, we're in it together with everybody else, and we need to make that happen, and that accountability trickles down into every role in the organization in lots of different ways and forms. So I personally am going to have to listen to this webinar again because there was so much packed into it. But with that, I do want to say thank you so much to Amy for your time and your expertise. Thank you, Julie, for sharing your passion and sharing your wealth of knowledge and what made you so successful, both of you so successful over time. So thanks, and with that, bye.